If your business runs on 5 different apps, 12 browser tabs, and one spreadsheet that everyone's afraid to touch, it's probably time for Odoo. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that connects every part of your business into one powerful, easy-to-use platform. So instead of wasting time switching between disconnected systems, your entire business works together in real time. Your team moves faster, your data stays accurate, and you can actually focus on growing your business. Let one unified system run your entire business. From the first opportunity to the final payment, everything works together in one place. Whether you're a small business or managing a large operation, Odoo gives you the flexible platform built to grow with you. Try it today for free at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Want you to, no matter where you are, hopefully you're in a quiet place. But I'd like you to just imagine something for a minute. Hopefully you're in a quiet place and you can really think about this. Think about, imagine yourself in a church at a funeral, and you're in the line and you're in the procession that's walking up to the casket to say, your last, your parting words or whatever you do whenever you see a corpse. I kind of freak out when I do. It's kind of unsettling. But so you're in the line, you're approaching the casket, and you walk up to the casket and you look down, and it's you. What do you think? And as soon as you see that it's you, someone comes up and says to you, would you please say the eulogy? What would you want said about yourself? Is it going to be that, you drive an expensive sports car, you live in a big house, you're a sharp dresser, you have the Rolex watch? Probably not, man. You're probably going to talk about how you were a good friend, how you were loving, how you loved your kids, and you were a good person. You're going to talk about these things that are most important to you. And that is really the key, I think, to not fearing death. It was.
Well, John, you know what I'm going to do at my funeral? I'm going to have a closed casket, and halfway through the sermon, I'm going to have them stop and start playing "Pop Goes the Weasel."
Yeah, that will. I could just see the people running out of the room. The one step, that you could just make that just out of, off the top, out of the, I don't even know what to say, but you could have a spring-loaded casket that where you actually did pop up out. And you could wave.
My parting gesture, that'd be great.
But it was Mark Twain that said, "The fear of death follows from the fear of life. A man who lives fully is prepared to die at any time." And I'm not ready to die by any means. I still have some things on my bucket list that I want to do.
Did you know who was ready to die at any time? And that was part of their philosophy, is what Mark Twain just quoted there?
No.
The samurai. The samurai were in their mind already dead. So every time they went into a battle, they had nothing to fear. They did not fear the Reaper because they considered themselves dead already. So it took away their fear, and it actually made them better in combat.
It's funny you say that, Tommy, because as I was preparing for the show, I was kind of looking through quotes, and I'm going to look through it. I'm going to find that because it was a really, really interesting quote. And it talked about dying before you die. And I think that's what you just mentioned.
Yeah, I read it in the Book of Five Rings, which was a famous book written by a samurai who had supposedly, the most battles ever. And that was one of their philosophies that all samurai shared, but that's one that they, a lot of business people will take that to mind and try to put it into effect just as they would the art of war. That's real popular by Sun Tzu. But that's where it came from.
Yeah, this is this I found it. It said, "Death is a stripping away of all that is not you. The secret to life is to die before you die and find that there is no death." It's I read that and I thought, man, that's really deep. I don't even know if I understand that myself all that well. But with that being said, you should ask yourself questions like this. If your life ended tomorrow, would you be proud of what you left behind? And my greatest example of this is I had a good friend in college. Her name was Kimberly Bergalis. She died on December 8th, 1991, and she was the first person, or believed to be the first person in history to die, to be purposely infected by a healthcare worker. You may have
with AIDS, right?
Yeah, with AIDS. She went to her dentist, and her dentist was he was not only HIV positive, but he was suffering from AIDS, and it's believed that he purposely infected not only her but several other of his patients. She made the cover of People magazine. I mean, this was big news back in the early 90s, and unfortunately Kim lost her life from it. It was truly a death sentence back then. But when I think about Kim, and I think about how she faced death, and especially being so young, it would be very easy to just be very angry and mad at the world and kind of isolate yourself. But Kim did not do that. Kim actually became very outspoken and presented her case before Congress. And it's because of Kim we have things like universal precautions, and we have much more stricter standards in place to protect the public good. It's she was so courageous in the face of death, and she did not fear the reaper. I think about her quite a lot because of the example that she gave really all of us, and because of her, we're much safer. She turned lemons into lemonade. She knew that there was no changing it. She had a death sentence, and she absolutely made the most out of it. Not only for not for herself, but for everybody else. She handled that conviction with much grace, I think. And as I said, I think a lot about her, and I'm thankful to have known her. And I kind of.
Yeah, it says that she was in the last months of her life, was cited by some politicians and journalists as an example of blameless HIV infection that had been allowed to happen due to the CDC and the healthcare industry being overly responsive to the concern of AIDS activists and gay community. Yeah,
I mean, if you remember, back then, AIDS wasn't necessarily in the. I mean, it was in the spotlight, but a lot of people didn't take it all that seriously because they thought, well, it's just gonna it's gonna kill a lot of homosexuals, and a lot of people thought that was good, So the dentist who was homosexual was, it's my understanding, I didn't know him, but, I understand he was very angry and upset by that and wanted to put this disease into the spotlight. And quite frankly, I think he murdered those people.
Absolutely. It says here she had no sexual history and was a chaste woman of 23 and wanted to wait till marriage. So, I mean, yeah, she didn't, it's horrific. He's a murderer without a doubt.
And I know that there's, I know there was back there, and there was a lot of controversy, and said that she was not chaste, she was not a virgin, and I knew Kim, and I know that she was, and in fact I know that she, I had a big crush on her actually, and she always turned me down on my dates. She was that genuine person that. She was as genuine as you could get. One of the nicest people I think I ever knew. Very smart and had a bright future. But
so how do we take death as about motivating yourself to become a better you, or to become a better person in the world? What is it like? What's happened in your life that caused that? Whose significant death that made you just say, "Hey, man, this is life here is short. We need to make something of it."
Yeah, well, this show is not about you and me. I think we both have experiences. Our fathers died, and I know that both impacted the way we view the world. So for me, it's just really my father is probably the most recent that impacted me. But I have others. Others in my life, and I'm sure our audience members, I know that they have people that have been close to them, or maybe not so close. I think that for who the bell tolls, it tolls for all of us, and we can learn from death. I think that's how we move beyond this. When we lose someone of significance, we all grieve, and we grieve because we can also grieve from job loss, ending a relationship, the change of health status. If you become very ill, but we can also grieve for our loss of freedom, and the terrorist attacks, and the way the world seems to be. Nowadays, it seems like such a horrible place. That can impact us and impact our emotions. But the truth of the matter is that good and evil have always existed. Natural disasters have always happened. People are good and bad, and that has not changed. The world does not change with the death of one person, but it sure seems like it does. It sure seems like the world is going, to hell in a handbasket when something horrific happens. But the truth of the matter is, it doesn't change at all. What changes is our perception, and I think therein lies the key to addressing, facing death in our own way. Is recognize what's important to you in life. Go back to the beginning of this episode where I mentioned. You're at your own funeral and you have to give a eulogy about yourself. What do you want said about yourself? Therein lies your priorities. That's what I think you should focus on, because that's what's truly important.
I always like to quote Master Yoda, and he says, "Death is a natural part of life. Rejoice for those who transform into the Force or the afterlife. Mourn them do not, miss them do not. Attachment leads to jealousy, the shadow of greed, that is."
Yeah, I think.
So is it selfish? Is it selfish to mourn like when someone passes away? I know Star Wars is only a movie, and Yoda is just a fictional Muppet. But it's wise words. Is it greedy for us to mourn for someone passing?
Well, before I say whether it's greedy or not, I think that, recognizing the truth that that's just a movie, and you said, what, a Muppet-like character?
He is a Muppet. He was voiced by, wasn't he voiced originally by Jim Henson? Or no, not Henson. One of the other Muppet guys, Oz, I think was his name. But
yeah, well, what I was saying is accepting that it's just a movie and that's just a Muppet-like character. That's the first step towards recovery.
Frank
Tom.
Oz, it's the same guy that voices Miss Piggy, for God's sake. Wisdom from Miss Piggy.
But everyone looks at death in a different way, in their own unique way. And no, I don't think it's greedy. I think it's I think that we all need to mourn in our own way and eventually face that and deal with that. After Kim died, I'll be just quite honest with you on this. Probably a little bit more honest than I really like to be, but I'm not necessarily a religious guy, but I was raised as a Catholic, and I view myself as a Catholic, although I don't agree with everything. But after Kim died, I became very angry at God. How could God take away such a wonderful person? How could he curse Kim with this fate? And it took me a really, really long time to deal with that. And I eventually came to terms with it, just recognizing that God has a bigger plan in store. And she was part of that plan. And yes, her life was taken early on and she was robbed of this life. But a lot of good came out of her death. And that must have been part of the plan. I think there are certain things that we can't understand, and we need to let things go. But we have the past, and in our memory, we have the past, and we should think about the past and learn from it. But we really just have the future. I mean, we don't have the future. We have the here and now. The future is just in our imagination. It's in our minds. It doesn't exist just yet. So I think here is a call to action to remember that and to live in the here and now. Have hope for the future. Plan for the future. Try, stop being complacent about your life and take more of an active role. Stop being passive. That's what we can learn from someone's death, is that your life can be taken away from you right now. I mean, something could happen, and it could happen during this show. Who knows? Yeah, but
I was drinking some water a few minutes ago, and I started gagging. And I was like, normally I have like a little cough switch hooked up to my mic where I can press it. And the day I was lazy, I was like, I'm not going to hook it up. And I never use it. And today I felt like I needed it because I was like, my God, I'm choking. Would it be ironic if I sit there and keel over on this podcast?
And that's terrible, because I'd have like a window into that through the webcam. And I'd be like, Tom?
You would think I was just screwing around with it.
I would think that the show would just go on, though. I'd probably just keep talking.
John keeps on talking. Sometimes we'll be talking on the phone and I get disconnected. I know John's sitting there talking while I'm trying to call back into him, and he's still carrying on his conversation.
I just hate that. I mean, not knowing that someone's not there. I mean, that's, if I don't hear breath or I don't hear crinkling of paper or something like that when we're on the phone, I ask.
I had a good friend, my friend Ernesto. He was my mentor as far as broadcast engineering, and he came down with bladder cancer, and eventually it spread, and he went through the whole battle with chemo, and where it would be completely gone, and then it would come back. And as I was with him, I always thought that we would have more time, because I remember there was lots of things that, he was a master at transmitters and transmitter sites, and we had this old AM that had been built in the 40s, and like no one knew, nothing was documented, and it was old technology. And he used to tell me, he goes, Tom, when I die, there's going to be a problem because everything's up here, and he pointed to his head. And I was like, Ernesto, well, maybe I'll bring in my video camera and we'll start going over some of this stuff and you can document it, right? Well, I always put that off thinking I had more time, and because I remember him saying one day to me, he goes, it was after chemo, and he had to go. We were working. He had to go lay down one day, so I made like a little area in one of the studios with some foam that we put on the walls in order to absorb sound. And he looks at me and goes, when is it? No, when am I just existing rather than living? He got to that point where I think he was ready to die, and I swear to God, it was about a month after that he was gone. And I in my head, I thought I had more time because he called me. I was on vacation one time. I was camping. It was actually this around the same time I just got back from my annual camping that I do every year in January on Martin Luther King Day. And so Ernesto called me. He goes, "Tom, I'm in the hospital, but I must see you today. I'm going to die today." And I was like, "Ernesto, man, you're not going to die today." He goes, "No, I must see you. I got to see you." And I said, "Look, I'll be back tomorrow. I'll come see you." And when you know it, that was the last sane conversation I had with him, because when I went to the hospital, he was so doped up on morphine, he just kept on sitting up in his bed saying "Mombi." That was the radio station that I worked for. And I said, "Ernesto, whatever it is, whatever you got to tell me, don't worry about it. I'll figure it out." Never did figure out what the heck he was going to tell me. But, it's just like I kept on thinking I had more time. And you really don't. I mean, in an instant, they can be gone. And that was something I knew was coming up. But I really still thought, this is a strong guy, man. He would do chemo and come in and work that same day and be like an ox. He'd be pulling stuff, lifting that stuff up. And, it's just, you take that for granted.
Yeah, I have, I feel exactly the same way with my dad. Now, he died of Lou Gehrig's disease, or ALS. And we knew that, we knew what the prognosis was. We knew it was terminal illness. And we also knew that the type of ALS that he had was the more aggressive type, and that we had 2.5 to 3 years. But we knew that was an average, and we expected more because my dad was not an average person. He was never, there was nothing average about him, and he was very strong, as you said. I remember going down to Florida, kind of help out, and here he is, with a feeding tube and everything, and he's got a pickaxe, and he's swinging this heavy pickaxe at these roots, and trying to clear out these roots in the ground. I was like, "Dad, I was like, let me do that," and he got really mad at me for trying to take away his pickaxe. I thought he was going to rip his feeding tube or do some harm, but I always thought we'd have more time, and we didn't. And that's a regret I now have to live with. But, you just have to be thankful for the time that you have. And that's not something you could change. One of my good friends, Brian, he's one of my best friends. I've known him for 30 years. And he lost his father and his brother within a year and a half of each other. Now, his mother and father were divorced. His father raised him. And he was very close to his dad, and his dad died in a car accident. He was coming home from work one day, and for whatever reason, he tried passing another car up on a hill. You're going up the hill, and coming up the other side was a gravel truck. And you know how heavy a big truck full of gravel would be. His dad got into the other lane almost in time, but his bumper, the back bumper of his pickup truck, hit the truck, and it spun him into a ditch, and it set the truck on fire, and he died instantly. A year and a half later, his only brother died. Brett was so full of life, and even though he died young, probably I think he was 22 years old, there was never a picture of him where he didn't have a smile on his face, and he wasn't doing something like something that very few people do. Like he went out to Montana to a dude ranch. He always had a smile on his face, and the memories I have of him are just so great. I have some great stories about him. And even though he died young, he lived a full life. And I think that this is a great lesson to say, if we don't know how much time we have, So we have to just go for it. And if you're unhappy about something, every minute that you're unhappy is 1 minute that you could be happy. The choice is really up to you. There's things in our life that suck, and we have to address them and live through them. But doesn't mean that we have to just passively take it. We can fight against that and fight for what we want out of life. And if you do that throughout your life, I think you'll have less regrets in the end.
It's this being a podcast, there was a famous podcaster that passed away not too long ago, a couple months ago. His name was Scott Densmore, and he has a Live Your Legend. He has a website, and he had like a community where you could join his course and stuff like that. But this guy died living his legend. He was one of those young millennial guys that, took life by the horns and went out and did all kinds of, adventurous stuff. And he actually died on Mount Kilimanjaro from falling rocks. So, he was out living his legend, doing something adventurous, climbing mountains, and, he passed away doing what he loved. But I know probably some of our listeners probably are familiar with him and probably have listened to his podcast.
Yeah, it's really funny, Tommy, that his death is not funny. But what's funny is that before we started doing our podcast and we were looking, doing a lot of research on blogs, I remember this one blog that I came across, and it was about living life on your own terms. And that concept really got this podcast off the ground for us. And what I remember about that blog is that it ended. And the last passage that the guy wrote was that said, I'm tired of just sitting here and writing about life. I'm ending my blog because I'm going to actually go out and live life now. I basically done all I can, and now it's time for me to live my life. And from that moment, I knew that I wanted our take on this to be different. And I think that both you and I, we both have full lives. We have legacies. We have children. So we're leaving something behind, and we're leaving a mark on this world. There are really two types of people in this world. There are creators, people who create something of lasting and have leave their own unique stamp of who they were on this earth. They leave something behind for people to remember them by. And then there are consumers. And those are people who just take and take and take and never give anything back. They're not going to be remembered because they've left nothing behind.
And it doesn't have to be something big. It doesn't mean that, like, you have to change the world or, be a famous political, person in history or a celebrity or anything like that. This means leaving your mark and, raising your children right, or, being a good friend or being a good worker or coworker or a good human being and, making a difference in someone else's life.
Yeah. When you die, you can't take anything with you. Your life is gone. Your material possessions have no meaning whatsoever. What really counts are the relationships that you have in your life, whether that be with your immediate family or your friends, or maybe your friends that are so close you consider them to be family. I recently I have a friend who's turning 50 years old soon, and we're all going to go on a cruise. There's going to be about 30.
You're bringing me on a cruise?
No, I'm not bringing you on a cruise. This is another friend.
Oh, I still have another year. Maybe we went on 50.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And you know what? I think we should start planning that now. We should start planning Tom's 50th cruise.
How about a swift kick in the ass cruise?
That would be awesome. I would love that. But I'm putting together all these videotapes that we have from college. These are 30-year-old videotapes, and yes, we were young and stupid in these, but as I'm going through and looking at them, it's just a reminder of how blessed I am and how thankful I am to have these people in my life who are like my brothers. There's so much love in those tapes, and we've gone through so much. But there's a group of us that there were 7 guys originally who were all like brothers. Only one has slipped away. So 6 of the 6 that still stay in touch, who have been in touch with each other for 30 years, we're all going to be going on this cruise. And man, that just, that's awesome. When you look at a video or a photograph, it can take you back into that time. And when you're looking at a photograph or a video where someone is dead and is gone, it really does change the meaning of that. So I think that's something else that you can do. You can write a journal, write your thoughts. You could take videotape, you can take photographs, leave something behind for people to remember you by and know you better through that.
I've told this story before on a Swift Kicking Ass, but obviously not everyone listens to every episode. When my father passed away, he passed away in 2003. So a couple of years ago, and maybe 6 years had passed or something since he had passed away. I was cleaning out my shed, and I came across one of those little recorders, like those little cassette mini recorders. And I was tossing stuff in the garbage, and I almost threw it in the garbage. And I pressed a button, and I was like, I doubt this thing's been here since forever. I doubt it's going to work. And to my amazement, the damn thing started, the little wheels and gears started spinning. And all of a sudden I heard my dad's voice come out of it. And I didn't have any recordings really of my father, very few. And when I heard my dad's voice, I just started crying, because I was like, my God, it's like, he's here. And he was talking, first he was talking about, he had a coin laundry at one time, and he was talking about the competition about some ceiling fans or something. But then he started reading the Lord's Prayer on it. And it was just beautiful. I brought it in, immediately showed my mother, because she was always asking me, hey, can you find any kind of footage that has his voice? I just want to hear his voice.
Yeah.
So this little piece of crap recorder became like a very cherished item, and it actually, one of the things that had led me into, pursuing this whole digital media thing, because, one time I was putting together a documentary, like a life story on my father. And, I was getting all this video footage and, stuff like that, but I didn't interview him. And I always the same thing. I thought I had more time, and when my father passed away, I kicked myself and said, I'm not going to let that happen. So I made sure I did one for my mom, because I was like, let me tell her life story, but it still bothers me that I never really took the time to record that and capture that for my kids, because my daughter knew him when she was 3, and my son never knew him. He passed away 3 months before my son was born. So,
yeah, I don't know if I don't know if we have any recordings of my dad's voice. So you should consider yourself very lucky to have that. They say that your memory of a person's voice is one of the first things that you forget. So I think that's really, really great that you have that.
So can I play? This is off YouTube, and it's a thing about death and motivation. But I just found it interesting. I'm just going to play you like a minute or two, and see what you think. Okay, this is by the Mulligan Brothers, by the way. They do these motivational films on YouTube, and they take movie clips and put it to, great speeches or great motivators. So it's very inspirational. Take a listen.
Last August, I was told that in all likelihood I had 3 to 6 months left to live.
No one wants to die. Even people who want to go to heaven don't want to die to get there. And yet, death is the destination we all share. No one has ever escaped it.
We don't get this again. We don't get this again. The car runs too fast.
We are going to die, and that makes us the lucky ones. Most people are never going to die because they're never going to be born. The potential people who could have been here in my place, but who will in fact never see the light of day, outnumber the sand grains of Sahara.
Somebody said to me, in light of those numbers, wow, so you're really beating the Grim Reaper. We don't beat the Reaper by living longer. We beat the Reaper by living well and living fully. For the reaper will come for all of us. The question is, what do we do between the time we're born and the time he shows up? Because when he shows up, it's too late to do all the things that you always want to kind of get around to. And you will need to find your passion. Many of you have already done it. Many of you will later. Many of you may take till your 30s or 40s, but don't give up on finding it. So your passion must come from the things that fuel you from the inside. Find your passion and follow it. And if there is anything I have learned in my life, you will not find that passion in things. And you will not find that passion in money.
I don't chase money because I can burn it.
So, what do you think, John?
Man, I don't know how we can follow that up. That was very powerful, Tom. That was a good clip. I do have one quote. I think it would be a great way to end this episode. Before I say it, if you're interested in this topic, we'd love to hear about it. We'd like to hear about your experiences. This topic or any other topic. Tell us what has motivated you to start taking control of your life, to take more of an active role, and stop being complacent. We'd love to hear from you, and visit us at aswiftkickintheass.com. The quote I have is life asks death, "Why do people love me but hate you?" Death responded, "Because you are a beautiful lie and I am a painful truth." It's anonymous.
Nice. Well, John, thank our listeners for checking us out. You can always go to swiftkickinass.com, sign up for our email list. Automatically, you'll get a free membership site, which has courses, the simple financial planning tool, and all kinds of goodies that we'll continuously add in there. And we thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening. Till the next time, this
Peace.
is John Curren and Tom Stewart.
Later.
Later.